Let's go.
Welcome to the Trusted Leader Show. I'm your host, David Horsager. Join me as I sit down with influential leaders from around the world to discuss why leaders and organizations fail, top tactics for high performance, and how you can become an even more trusted leader. Welcome to the Trusted Leader Show. It's David Horsager, and I have a special friend and guest with. Welcome, Allison Shapira. How are you?
Hi, David. What a treat to be with you.
Oh, it is my treat. So we got to dive right in, but she is a former opera singer turned entrepreneur, author, speaker, educator. She teaches at the Harvard Kennedy School, and she recently became a real, authentic bestseller of Speak with Impact, How to Command the Room and Influence Others. We're going to talk about all of that. Before we do, just give us what are a couple other thoughts? I mean, I know you speak like you can speak in 10 languages and you're fluent in about 4. So what are a couple other things we should know about Allison?
Everything that you've said is so helpful. Thank you, David. And I really wouldn't add anything to that, although I could give you a laundry list of other random facts, such as I am a new sailboat racer. So that's something that I'm doing on the side, is crewing on people's sailboats in Annapolis, Maryland. So that's a fun fact that we can share.
Wow, you know what? My brother was just out at the boat show, the big boat show. Was it last week? Were you there? Yes.
There were two. There was the sailboat show and the powerboat show. I went to both of them.
Okay, he is a sailboat guy. In fact, I have a guy, Gabe, on the team here who sails many, many, many weekends here until the ice freezes in Minnesota. But that's very interesting. Well, there's a lot there around trust and leadership and working together and everything else. So, well, we've become friends, and I'm so grateful for it. I think you're brilliant. I think so much of what you do is just it's just the way you do it also is engaging and cool and fun. And so we are hoping, I'm telling this out loud to everybody listening, we are hoping to find out by tomorrow if Allison is able to be one of our keynote speakers at the Trusted Leader Summit, April 12th through the 14th. We believe she'll be on the main stage. We're going to find out within 24 hours. So by the time this drops, people will know if she's on the agenda or not. But let's get going on some of what we're going to be talking about there. We're going to come back to personal leadership in a moment. But I want to just start with this book, Speak with Impact. Tell us about, what can people expect if they haven't read it, and why'd you write it?
I wrote the book because everyone kept asking me, what book do I recommend on teaching public speaking or learning public speaking? And I said, well, there's this book, there's that book, but there's no one book that walks you through the process of writing, delivering, practicing, improving on your public speaking skills. So that's why I set out to write the book. And it was less of a book about public speaking and more of a handbook for the busy professional moving up in their career who wants to speak with impact, using their voice at work or in their community.
If I'm not mistaken, Warren Buffett said, if you want to double your riches, if you want to double your wealth, he said, the one thing you should do, not investment advice, not all these other things. He said the one thing you need to do is learn how to communicate better, right? He said
that is exactly true.
Double your wealth, those that can communicate, whether it's in the boardroom or on the platform. So you're helping people do it. And what I love, and of course, as you know, the way we think around here around trust, everything's about building trust. You and I have had a fun little banter about something I say from the stage, and that is, I was an undergrad, I was a communication major. But one of the fun things I say, trying to get people's attention, but I believe it, is communication is never a core issue. It's always a trust issue. Just like I say, leadership is never a core issue. The reason you follow a leader or not is trust. The reason you buy from someone or not is trust, not a sales issue, not an innovation issue, not even a diversity, equity, inclusion issue. I talk about how it's actually at the core always a trust issue. But on the communication front, then we get into the pillars of trust and say, see, it's clear. Clear communication is trusted, unclear isn't. Compassion is trusted, hateful isn't. And we go through the 8 pillars of trust. But in the midst of that, tell us your perspective.
Well, I remember hearing you say that the first time a number of years ago, and I wrote it down, and I even wrote and highlighted, quote this, because it really impacted me. And I believe it's true, and I
don't
believe
like
it's
this guy.
false. Well, because it's based on bad communication is not the issue. So I believe good communication at its very core is about building trust with your audience. And so if you don't have the trust, the communication will fall flat. But when you have the trust of your audience and you use your communication skills to not only establish, but to reinforce and continue building that trust, then it can be a very powerful part of the issue. So it really depends on how we view communication.
So we agree basically, and this has been a fun
That's
conversation. Right. You've got a few ways that you believe you can use communication to build trust. Well, give us a few of those tips right off. We love to start right in punchy, and I want to suck the marrow of life out of your brilliant brain as fast as we can. This is my free consulting that you would normally get tens of thousands of dollars for, right? So no, I appreciate you being here and sharing with our trusted leader audience. But what are some ways that we can use communication to actually build trust?
There are three specific ways, I believe, at least three ways. I'm sure you and I could come up with many more, and our listeners and viewers can come up with many more. But the first way in which we use communication skills to build trust is by speaking the truth. And I know that sounds obvious, like something we should do already. But when we say speak the truth, I mean use your own words when communicating, not company jargon or bureaucratic language, but use words that resonate with you, and so that then they can resonate with others. So the first step is to speak the truth. The second step is to make sure every part of you is communicating the same thing. So when I speak, my words are saying one thing, my eyebrows, my smile is saying something else, and my tone of voice is also communicating. So the idea is if there's a disconnect between what we say and how we say it, that lack of clarity and consistency, as you talk about in our communication, reduces the audience's trust in us because they don't know what to believe. And so what I want people to do is recognize every part of them should be communicating the same message.
Before we jump to number 3, this gets to something you say that I love, and you talk about this, and I think you write about it in your book, and that is authenticity over perfection. Like,
that's right.
We trust those that are authentic over perfect. In fact, some people almost seem too perfect. I don't trust them.
That's right. That's right. We see somebody on stage, and when they're perfect, and we do this with people in all industries, whether it's politics or business, when we see someone and they appear to be perfect, we deep down know that perfection is impossible. So we start to mistrust that person. We wonder, what are they hiding? What isn't going right for them? And so that second guessing of that person speaking is it can be really destructive to our trust in them. So when we're imperfect, now it doesn't mean unprepared. We still need to be prepared, and we need to be accurate. But a lot of people, especially in public speaking, spend way too much time trying to create the perfect meeting opener, the perfect question at an event, the perfect speech. And what they're striving for is impossible and counterproductive. So the authenticity comes out when we let ourselves make little mistakes in our communication, but recognizing that we're still being authentic to our message.
This reminds me, I might have shared this before on this show, but it was 20 some years ago. I was kind of a mentor of mine. He was the head of Imagineering at Disney. Said, if you're going to be speaking, you need to go to the National Storytelling Festival. You just need to go. So it was 1999 maybe, or 7 or something, that I went to the National Storytelling Festival, Jonesboro, Tennessee, this tiny little town, beautiful, quaint little village in Tennessee that all of a sudden expands to 100 or 200,000 people for this, this 4 days or 5 days or whatever. They come from around the world. And you'd have these events with, a few hundred people here, 50 people there. And then in the evening or at the big tent, you'd have, 2,000 people watching. Some people you might have to pay extra for the ticket. And I remember the first night I was just blown away. I'd seen amazing, storytelling from Africa, from, the Appalachia, whatever. And And I watched this lady, and she was 90 some years old. And she stood at an old-fashioned straight microphone, kind of like what I have here if people are watching, but a straight mic with a cord, no hand gestures, just standing there telling her story. And if I look at an audience, that rapt attention, not a movement, not a sound from anybody. They were hanging on every word of I wish I could remember the lady's name. And they were just hanging, they were watching. And I thought in that moment, what is it? What is it? Mostly, she's just plain authentic. She's not this big. I'm not saying don't use gestures or do use them. I'm not saying use the voice or not use it. I'm saying she was just, what it was for her was just the authenticity. People were just hanging on every word. And so I learned it's not all this necessarily a Toastmaster or ah. It's not a this or that, a move around the stage. It's just being her was just so powerful authentically.
It's so true. And that's what's so important as people recognize everyone has different communication styles, different personality styles. So if you're introverted, it's not about becoming extroverted so that you can be a powerful speaker or communicator. It's owning your own style and then bringing the best version of yourself on stage, into the meeting room, into the Zoom room, just as you would off stage.
Absolutely. And I can't be her. I can't do it without moving my hands. But I can be me.
Neither can I. I can't. Not even now can I stop moving my hands. But that's part of my communication style. This is authentic to me.
Yes, undeniably. Let's jump to number 3. The third way.
I was ready to jump in with that third way of using our communication skills to build trust. And it's 2 parts. It's about using active verbs and following our words with actions. And that gets back to when you say communication is never the issue. Trust is. So often we can speak in a way that either addresses an issue directly or tries to take a lack of responsibility in the way that we communicate. So use direct verbs that address an issue head on. And then when you're done speaking, follow those words with action. And that's what continues to build trust. Because if you simply speak and then don't take action, that action is a form of communicating. You're communicating with your feet, with your hands, and both are critical in the act of leadership.
Hey everyone, a quick interruption here to share some big news. April 12th through the 14th, you are invited to the Trusted Leaders Summit. What makes a powerful event is bringing together amazing people in a way that actually makes an impact in the world. We're talking about a get-together that is packed with immediately useful content. You'll hear from top leaders like John Foley, the former lead solo pilot for the Blue Angels, Harvard professor Allison Shapira, and more incredible global experts. Get your tickets before they're gone at trustedleadersummit.com and join us in becoming even more trusted leaders. We can't wait to see you there.
The only way to rebuild trust, we say, is to make and keep a commitment. It's not the apology. I'm sorry I'm late. No, you're not. You're late every time, right? I'm sorry I'm late. I'm sorry. Right. Doesn't mean we don't apologize. Use the words, but they have to be followed by action. Tell me an example, though, on that first half. Give us a little clarity on using action or active verbs. Like I've got a senior leader dealing with I've got a couple consulting calls today where we had senior leaders, they've got, their people are throwing darts at that senior leader for all the things they're doing wrong. But how would I then go communicate to my team using active verbs and then follow up? Can you give me a scenario?
I'll give you an example. So very often you'll hear a leader communicate and use passive verbs. Mistakes were made versus I dropped the ball. I failed my team. We failed you. So that's what I mean when I say active verbs, active tense as opposed to passive tense. So I'm taking responsibility. And exactly as you've said, I'm not just apologizing, I'm taking responsibility, which means things will be different moving forward. So that's what I mean in terms of the message.
This is great. Now you're jumping all over the place here because I have so many questions for you, but you were a concert cellist right? Or a voice.
Vocalist.
Yes. Concert vocalist. Yes, and I've heard
in my head, I was a cellist, but I wasn't actually
I've seen
a cellist.
I feel like you've got all these capabilities, but I know, you have that level of preparation there. You are a preparer. Tell me a little bit about preparing now for, let's say, whether you're teaching at Harvard or you're speaking to an executive team or doing a keynote. How do you prepare?
I always ask 3 questions before I craft a presentation or even prepare for this podcast or prepare for my class at the Kennedy School. And I teach the people we work with to ask these 3 questions as well. They seem very simple, but they're actually quite complex. And those questions are: who's your audience? What's your goal? And why you? And by why you, I don't mean why are you qualified? I mean, why do you care? Because we ask these 3 questions. The audience we ask about so that we understand what will resonate with them. Where are they? Where do we need to get them to go? So how do we connect with them on their level using language that will inspire or connect with them? What's our goal means what do I want to happen as a result of what I'm about to say? What outcome do I want to see? And then why you? Why do you care? Means why am I inspired by this topic? Or why am I simply proud of this work? Because then the language that you choose is authentic and as a result is more powerful. So nobody answers why you with to increase shareholder value. Mm-hmm. They answer why you with because when I was a child, I saw my parents get taken advantage of by their financial advisor. And now, as a financial advisor, my goal is to make sure nobody has the experience that I had growing up. So it's getting them to tap into that authentic connection to the message. And then that authenticity, as you know, brings out, it makes it more readily possible for someone to trust them. Because in order for us to trust someone, we have to feel like we know them. And that why you brings out a way that others can relate to you.
I think if people ask these 3 questions, we would not just have less boring presentations, we'd actually have, much more importantly, relevant presentations, relevant to us. What if we made it about the audience we're serving? What if we made it about the goal, taking them from here to there? If people would, instead of just presenting thinking, I've got to do this presentation, if they thought about what is the goal, we actually have a chance because we have a target, right?
It's true. It's true. And it goes even deeper than a presentation because so many people will say, well, I give presentations from time to time, but every day I'm running meetings, I'm meeting clients, I'm running small group meetings, one-on-one meetings. And those 3 questions I actually recommend you ask yourself before every meeting or in the negative 2 minutes that you have in between Zoom or WebEx calls. Pause and breathe, ask these 3 questions, and then they help you refocus and reset so that when you log into that call, you bring your best, most strategic mindset to that call, which I think is invaluable from a leadership perspective.
Let's get to you. I want to follow up later on in a couple moments here with the book a little bit more. But before we get there, or we go back there, Allison Shapira, you're an advisor to many. You're speaking on these stages, like Trusted Leader Summit and even bigger. But what we've at least found is people that are great leaders with those that are educating at, Kennedy, Harvard, or senior leaders that you advise or companies you advise, they're leading themselves somehow. Personally, how are you leading yourself? Do you have daily routines? Do you have, whether it's physical, spiritual, social, relational? Let us inside a little bit. What are you doing?
I do have several routines, and this process became even more important during the pandemic when so many of the things that we normally do for sustenance, such as spending time with family and friends or traveling to new destinations, was taken away. And so I asked myself, what do I need to do to provide for my own happiness and inspiration that's within my power? And what I've started doing is, first and foremost, meditation, starting my day with 20 minutes for me of transcendental meditation. But anytime I can simply sit in silence and either turn off my thoughts or let my thoughts run and be creative about the day that I want to see or about the person I want to be. That quiet time for contemplation is critical. I also need to have some sort of physical exercise, whether it's tennis or running or paddleboard. My good mood comes from me exercising. And so that has to be a daily part of my life.
I've never not seen you in a good mood.
We all have our bad days. We just
you must
don't
exercise
put them on
every
Facebook,
time I've seen
David.
you. So tell me, how do you schedule that, by the way? Hey, you're busy. You got to teach this class. You got to go meet with that executive. You got to, be on. How do you schedule in your physical exercise?
I woke up at 5:20 this morning so that I could make a 6 o'clock outdoor boot camp. And I went to bed at 10. All right, a little later than 10, but I intended to go to bed at 10 to make that happen. But the idea is I prioritize it and I wind things down the evening before so that I make sure I do it. And again, it's not just because I know it's good for me. It's because I have a physical and chemical reaction to exercise and the lack thereof that for me is necessary in order to be the best version of myself. So I'm lucky in that way that I'm pulled to do this, whereas I know a lot of people just have to force themselves to do it.
Almost everybody I've ever met that I've asked this of as far as exercise, they either don't exercise and they don't know they would have this reaction, or they exercise and they all say, I couldn't do without it. Like it's part of my mood. It's part of my, so it's like if you start exercising, this happens. Like it affects the mood. It affects the overall health. It affects leadership quality and all kinds of things.
Oh, it does. It makes me a better leader of my team because I'm more patient, I'm more energetic, I'm more optimistic. So it's in everyone's best interest to make sure I get my sleep, I exercise, and I get fresh air. Those are non-negotiables for me.
Sleep, exercise, and fresh air.
That's it.
All right. Anything
That's
else
it.
on the routine list that we should be thinking about?
I also make lists every day in terms of what I want to achieve. And so I make sure that I'm on track with those lists. And I'm also very, very focused with my time. So I'm sure when people know that you have your own business, they assume that means you can do Friday brunch or just take Monday off and spend a longer weekend with family. And it's actually the opposite. Because we run our own businesses, we're going to work more than the 9 to 5 because we see the direct impact of our work on our businesses and on others.
Absolutely.
So that sense of discipline and focus, I actually think of them as my superpowers, the ability to focus on what I need to do to move the business forward.
Yeah, be an entrepreneur. You only have to work half time, right? Just what 12 hours are you going to work?
I get so insulted. If someone asks me for a weekday casual meeting, I'm like, don't you think I'm successful? How do you think I can afford to do that?
Oh, what about, on this entrepreneurial journey that you jumped onto, what were some of the barriers or things you wish you would have known, 20 years ago?
I wish. It's so interesting because there are a number of things that I've learned that I'm glad I didn't know when I started out. For instance, how long it takes to get those first paying clients in the very, very beginning, or how long it will take to grow your company to a certain level that you anticipated. It works. It just works on its own timeline. But what I do wish I had known starting out is how important it is to constantly be meeting people and building those relationships, because in our industry it can be a 2 to 5 year sales cycle from when we meet someone to when they actually have the need and the budget for our help. And I'll meet people at an event. Maybe I don't think they have the budget. Maybe I think they're too junior in their career. And then 5 years later, they've moved into a new role and now they get to make recommendations to somebody else. So I wish I had realized early on how incredibly important it is to build that network. And it's not just for entrepreneurs, it's for anyone looking to bring people together in terms of working towards a shared goal. It's a constant process.
You're constantly, speaking of constant processes, you're constantly learning. You put a lot of output, whether it's in the classes or everything else. What do you learn in these days, or what are you curious about?
It's so funny you mentioned that because I just took a trip to Chicago for a workshop and I came up with 2 new modules on the plane flying home from Chicago. And it was because I had put some questions out on LinkedIn because I'm getting ready to do LinkedIn Live. And I thought, what are people's questions? What issues do they have? And nearly everyone responded by saying, I want to learn how to be more concise in my communications. Everyone responded. Very few people overcoming nerves, which is what I thought they would choose. It's all about brevity. And so I thought, I know a lot about brevity. There's also a lot out there. So I started combing through books that I had and researching and looking at different research papers. And then on the plane, I came up with a module on the power of brevity. So I'm constantly thinking about what do people need and what are new ways in which I can help their existing needs, or what ways can I help them in going forward in new ways? And that commitment to learning is actually really exciting. That gives me energy, just like boot camp does.
Most training and development initiatives don't last or even solve the root problem hindering an organization. That's where TrustEdge certification comes in. TrustEdge certified partners are equipped with a suite of tools to identify, benchmark, and close gaps in trust for good. Because when you solve the real issue, you get measurable results and a culture where people actually want to make an impact. So whether you're a trainer, a manager, an HR executive, or a leader in learning and development, check out trustedgeplatform.com and see how you can start solving the root issue and get lasting results in your organization. And now back to the show.
You can see why brevity is important today in this fast-paced, noisy culture. How do we get that message across? The clearer, the better, right? And brevity is often a way there. What I like about this too, when we think about learning, at least 3 things come to mind for me quickly. Travel expands the mind. Reading expands the mind. And the people I'm around, I really love Socratic method. I love talking with smart people like you, thinking, well, what do you think about this? What does this work? That discussion based, and that can happen in a mastermind or an accountability group or whatever. Those 3 things. But I think it's interesting. This idea popped in your head. What you said first is not just I'm learning about brevity, but I was on a trip to Chicago. Like I got out of my comfort zone, and you kind of thought of this new idea while you were away, in a way.
Yes. And what's also, I would add a 4th component to what you're saying that speaks to why it happened on a flight to Chicago. It happened in a place where all the other distractions were turned off. So no notifications. It's usually the time in which we have to close our devices, but we can't open our laptop yet. And so the 4th way that I would add is silence. Where we turn off, we stop moving, we stop listening to music, we stop exercising, whatever it is, and we simply sit and let our mind go. And for me, and I forgot this during the 18 plus months of not traveling, I forgot how incredibly creative and productive I am on planes. And it's because I'm so focused and I can let my mind go.
I love it. Wow. Anything you're reading right now that you're like, oh, I got a great book right now, or something I'm really love to read and that's inspiring me?
I have a couple of books. I have a book about a 16-year-old young woman who sailed around the world by herself. My parents were very upset when they saw me pick up that book. I said, don't worry, I'm not doing it, but I'm reading about it. And then I'm on a business side, I'm reading a book on applied improvisation techniques beyond theater. And I, as I mentioned, am always looking for fun new ways for people to learn core critical skills. And I believe improv is an incredible way to do that. I use a lot of improv already, but what I'm doing is I'm reading these business case studies about how improv helped companies achieve business results. And so they have all these exercises, and I'm updating my curriculum, plugging these exercises in as I'm reading the book. So again, it's so exciting to plug in new ways of learning.
Do you know the title of it?
It's downstairs.
That's
I can
okay.
get it for you.
No, that's commonly. Like I'm reading stuff, I don't remember the title either all the time. But I think this is interesting. What I love and you love is applied research. Like we love that the stuff. We don't like just some motivational, everybody yell, yeah. We like that the research, but only we love to apply it to our, like, how can this actually make an impact tomorrow morning in someone's life or in the team or in the outcomes? So I like that. For me, when people ask, how did you get better at speaking on the way to whatever you've done and that kind of thing, and I think it doesn't just happen, does it? It's like you're working. I've had coaches I've paid a whole lot. I've had two things that came to mind from what you said. I took a stand-up comedy class, never wanting to be a stand-up comedian, like, 8-week course, twice a week. We had to go do stand-up. Boy, you want to have critique happen. Go to a live comedy club, and with people, who are inebriated and have their arms crossed saying, make me laugh. That is tough environment. You can do that. And if you can keep middle schoolers' attention, you've finally done something, right?
That's right.
But the other course I took was improv. And I just think of how I don't even know how that plays itself out now in a boardroom or in an executive session, but it does. It does. It makes me better. And so I think these are, just great ideas for becoming better.
I know exactly how it helps, because it helps you think on your feet, which means you're more able to come up with creative solutions and handle any question that's thrown your way. And in my experience, when people are overly nervous before a speech or presentation, it's because they're nervous about what's going to happen when they're unprepared for a question. And so knowing that they have the improv techniques to get creative and handle any question thrown their way makes them more confident, which makes them more effective in that board meeting.
We're back to communication. I love this. Tell us a couple more tips from the book. Everybody needs to go get the book. I've got it here.
That's right.
Speak with Impact, How to Command the Room and Influence Others. Give us a couple more tips as we start to land the plane.
Some of the tips, and this is one of my favorite topics that I address because of my background as an opera singer, and even now as a continuously performing singer-songwriter as well, is how do you harness the power of your breathing when you communicate? And there are two main benefits to that. The way in which we breathe can both calm our nerves and project our voice. And I talked earlier about the tone of our voice communicates. I would say the tone of our voice communicates more than the words themselves. And so when we study breathing techniques, then we learn how to let our most powerful voice out and let it command the room or command across the camera lens and into someone's living room or bedroom. And so that's a topic I go into in depth in the book, addressing both how do you use breathing to calm your nerves and self-regulate, and then how do you use breathing to project your voice and make sure that the power of your voice matches the power of your words.
What's one thing left for Allison Shapira? What do you hope for? What's the biggest hope for the future? Maybe even the next few years if you don't want to do your whole life, but what's the kind of hope ahead for you?
The more I so appreciate that question. The more I think about what I do, the more I realize that it's not simply about public speaking, and it's not even about leadership communication, which is how I broadly address this topic. It's really about connection. It's about human connection. And the more I travel, and I've led workshops and given keynotes all over the world in all different regions. And the more I do that, the more I realize how fundamentally similar we all are. We all get nervous before a speech or presentation. It's crazy. I'll meet someone who is from a country I've never been to, speaking a language that I don't speak. And when they hear what I do, they say, "Oh my God, I'm so nervous about public speaking. I don't want to look foolish in front of my peers." And it doesn't matter where you're from. It's human. And I wish everyone could see how similar we are and see that powerful connection that we have and are capable of tapping into. And if we did, I know the world would be a better place in every single way. My goal is that I can broaden that message from leadership communication to the power of human connection and come up with the actionable takeaways for that.
I love it. That's what's next for Allison Shapira. I love it. Well, let's reminder here, everybody can get the show notes, and we're going to have a picture and everything about the book, Speak with Impact, at trustedleadershow.com. You can even hold it up there. See that? I love it. Speak with Impact. And it's our favorite colors with some red and white. We love that. We're on brand with Trust. So Speak with Impact, we're going to put links to that in the show notes. I would love it also if you would email us. So before this show drops, the applied improv techniques, that sounds fun and aligning. And if you want to share the other book about the lady that is sailing around the world, that'd be fun too. But we'll definitely highlight yours. We hope to get to have you at the summit coming up. Have I done enough inkling about that?
You have, and you've made people so interested that regardless, they're going to go to the website just to see if I'm speaking there or not, because you've built it up so much. I think that was brilliant.
So that's trustedleadersummit.com. You'll see if Allison's there when this show drops, and then trustedleadershow.com will be where you'll get all the show notes, books, and connections on all of that. Where else can we find out about you, Allison? We want to know you, and people listening today are saying, I need help with my communication. I need to present at this, speak at that. I'm a chair of the board, and I know I haven't done a great job at this. Or I need some coaching as a CEO, or I want to come in your class at Harvard Kennedy School. But where could people find out more about you?
So I would first encourage people to connect with me personally on LinkedIn, because that's where I'm the most active. I'm constantly posting articles and thoughts and tips on communication skills. And so that's a way for us to have a dialogue and communicate. Then I'd recommend that people visit the website of my company, Global Public Speaking, which is globalpublicspeaking.com. And you can find out not just about me, but also about our team of trainers and coaches who work all around the world with some of the biggest companies in the world. And if you sign up there on that homepage, we've just released a new workbook called Everyday Public Speaking, which gives you some tips for how you can practice and improve your speaking skills every single day in meetings and presentations.
Love it. What a gift. Thank you so much. Well, last question. Here we are. It's the Trusted Leader Show. Allison, who is a leader you trust and why?
There's a particular woman in finance who I really admire. Her name is Katie Knox, and she was voted one of the top women in finance just this year. And I've had the pleasure of working with her and her team for years. And what I love about her is that when she's on stage communicating, she is the same person on stage as she is off stage, and she lives the values that she communicates. So she's not just about the words, she's also about the action, and she does it with a confidence and authenticity that I know are inspiring to her team and are inspiring to me personally.
I love it. We need to share this. Katie Knox. All right. What you just made me think of, we have 7 virtues at Trust Edge Leadership Institute. That's our inside values, not our values going out. And one of them is be the same on stage and off. And everybody has a stage. For me or you, it might be a literal stage. For someone else, it might be on the phone. It might be meeting someone in person. It might be via Zoom. But I love that. Allison, thank you for sharing your wisdom today. I know there's a whole lot more in there, but thanks for what you've shared today and the way all of us can keep connected with you. I hope to see you soon. For now, that is the Trusted Leader Show. Until next time, stay trusted.